don't stop. And you bang, bang, do the boogie, boogie. And I'm going to pay you, Robbie, in meatballs. I'm going to pay you in meatballs.
Wow.
That's
We're going deep.
We are, man. We are. And you know what's funny is people are already watching and like, what is this jackass? That's the great part.
Why did we even get there?
I don't know how we got there. I really don't. So I'm just excited that we are here because, Chris, every day that I get to talk to you is a great day, man. And for those of you who are watching, thanks for being here and just kind of eavesdropping. I'm talking to one of my favorite people in the entire world, Chris Brogan. If you don't know him, you will. He is one of the most genuine people I know. He's an author, a keynote speaker, a business advisor. He helps companies update their organizational interfaces to better support modern humans like me and you. He believes that the age of factory-sized interactions is over, and we all come one to a pack. It's time right now to accept that we're all a little dented. And Chris is one of the first people that I ever got to know on the internet. Chris was my first follower on Twitter. I think you're my first LinkedIn recommendation too, based on comments that I made on your blog. And you're the first person that invited me on their podcast when we were doing the Great BSers, the Great Big Small Business Show.
Oh,
Hundreds of years ago with Becky McRae and Zane Safrit, Ted Demopoulos. From that, Ted actually invited me to be on, or part of his book, What Nobody Ever Tells You About Blogging and Podcasting. So, Chris, I owe you much, my brother, and I'm so glad that you're here and so glad you're my friend.
You know, it's been a very mutually giving experience for the decade plus that we have known each other. And, you know, the Great Big Small Business Show, man, what another great venture I had in mind that, you know, didn't entirely take all the way off the ground, but the premise was great. You know, if we did that 10 years after we had done it, it would have worked perfectly. But
so I now own the domain, and we will bring it back because I don't ever want anybody else to take it. So we're going to bring sexy back, Chris, me and you.
I love it.
Yeah, because I think it's important. I mean, we think about the way it was. So, folks, if you're listening and you're like, wow, social media is Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Chris and I were doing social media back when the only social media we had was either we could comment in each other's blogs, which we did every time we wrote a post, or we could do this wonderful, crazy thing called a track back, which meant I wanted to go longer and not take over your comment section with my 1,000 words and wanted to bring that back to my site. You remember those days, Chris?
Oh my gosh. It was, you know, the good and the bad, because if you think about it, it was really hard to explain to people how to subscribe via RSS. And we spent so much of our time educating potential readers saying, it's this button, but then you got to do this thing and you got to find a reader. And don't worry, Google has the best one. Oh, never mind. They deleted it, you know? So it was the worst of times. It was the best of times, and I wouldn't trade it.
No, I mean, I would say if you could have done social media then, it's way easier now.
You're not wrong, except it's also way overcrowded, way cluttered, way full of, you know, all the cool kids finally showed up. So, you know, we're back to being picked last in gym class just on a digital platform. But, you know, it's all golden. I think that one of the things I love about social still in all of its flavors, and I don't ever really think of it as social, but like I was on YouTube looking for a recipe the other day, and I found this woman, and it was such an imperfect video. It was such like every little bit of it. And midway through, she's like, oh, well, that didn't work. And then it's like she dropped some of the stuff on the floor, and she's like, whatever, and put it back in. And I was like, you know, this is so much better than watching like a professional cooking show, because it's how we would do it. It's how we do it at our house or whatever. And I think that on days if I feel jaded or upset or like, oh man, this is stupid and it's too slick and glossy, I love that you can still find people just being so ridiculously real.
Yeah, that is the big thing that I fell in love with and that I still love, and why I still participate in the game, because unfortunately now a lot of it is a game. You have to kind of, you know, I firmly believe in the giver's gain, but now unfortunately it's often a giver's game instead of gain.
Sure.
And that is, hey, Chris, I shared your post, man. Can you now come wash my car and buy me a new house? Because, you know, that's the same thing, right?
Yeah. It's, you know, every now and again, I still run into that and I feel like, oh, hello. And one of them was an author who was like, well, you know, I haven't really connected with you in so many years and I'm glad we reconnected. And as you saw, I commented on a bunch of your stuff in the last couple of days. You should really help me by writing this article and this review and this whatever. And I was like, man, like, I don't know. I always feel sad for people who haven't been around for a while because I feel like I love that you think you just made up this strategy. But okay.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, the last couple of days, Chris, I have known you. I would bet it has now gone on 14 years.
Sounds about right.
I've met you, both your kids. I met both your parents, and I love them to pieces. I met Jack. I met Jack's mom.
Right. Right.
You're like legitimately, like you're my friend. And Chris, I don't, and I mean this. I don't think I've ever purposely asked you for anything other than to spend time with you. Right. And that though maybe one day I will. Right. But same with you, man. You've never asked, but I've certainly volunteered to help you. You've always volunteered to help me. And I think that's so fascinating that I would never think, because Chris, I just like 7 of your Instagram posts that now suddenly you owe me.
It's so nutty. It's really super nutty. And Jack says hi, by the way.
Oh, hey, Jack.
I think that I feel for the people who make those requests too. I feel for those people because I know that what they're saying is I just haven't really figured out the magical formula. I've been told by everybody this is how it's supposed to be. Hasn't worked yet. So I'm just going to try expecto. I'm trying to think of the word reciprocitium. There you go. I'm not very good at Harry Potter. So it's nutty because this system, these tools expose us or allow us to expose ourselves in the most positive of ways, but it also shows our shortcomings sometimes. And it's, if you don't know how to sort of earn somebody's attention or earn somebody's interest in sharing something, it's going to go bad for you. Like, it's just not going to feel very good. And I'm sure that person who asked me to do that, I'm sure they're just feeling like, man, nothing works for me. She'll probably unfollow me again because I didn't do anything with her email. I was just kind of nonplussed and I didn't want to write mean things. So, but I think, Phil, it's so rewarding for us. Like when, you were nice enough, I had that event and you drove all the way to come and see me and some of the other folks that were at that event that we were at. It was a few months back. It was funny because we pick up right where we left off. Everything's wonderful. And, the minute Phil says, I'm working on this new thing, I'm like, oh, me. I'd love to be part of it. Let me help. And anybody who knows you feels that way. Anyone who says, no one who knows you says your name and doesn't then smile. So like, it's a beautiful thing. And I really feel for the people who are jumping onto this thing cold and, where's my bag of money? It's just not happening.
Yeah, well, it's your point about exposing the worst in us. I think it really exposes how impatient and microwave generation we are. We expect that pour in 7 Twitter followers, throw in 3 Facebook likes. I did 2 live videos, and now I should be famous. And unfortunately, I mean, Chris, you're an overnight success of 22 years blogging, something like that, right? With live journal days and long time ago. I'm overnight success of now 14 years blogging. Seth has written every day forever. I mean, I'm sorry, you can't throw up a website with a clever name and expect that 1,000 real people are going to find you on day 3. It's just not how it works.
Right. And then the new one is everyone and their brother has a podcast, like podcasts are the new band. And so it's so weird that people are like, I don't know, I don't have any audience. There's an ultra finite amount of time you can listen and watch these kinds of things. And I would say that, people ask me all the time, what are my podcasts I subscribe to? Almost none of them are my friends. Like I'll dip in on my friends all the time, but I watch absurd and listen to absurd things. It has nothing to do with, marketing or that sort of a thing. And so think about that. If there's an abundance of marketers cluttering these platforms and none of us are watching each other's shows, which by the way is great because who's not going to buy your stuff? Someone who's just like you. But boy, it's,
By the way, Chris, will you like my Facebook page, please?
I will like it. Really, I like you and your page.
But and I say that obviously tongue in cheek, but here's what I see, right? People friend me on Facebook because they're friends with 31 of my friends and they popped up in the suggest list. The very first thing they do, will you like my page? Who are you? I don't know you. On LinkedIn, they add me. Again, I guess I lean to the promiscuous side on social. I want to make friends. I want to, I don't know where my next piece of business is going to come from. And I don't know who will be the next Chris Brogan in my life. I really don't. So I'm open to that. But then the next thing I got this week, this kid, 3 weeks, Chris, he's been my LinkedIn friend, never ever once engaged with me, never anything. The first message I get, "Hi Phil, I'm a keynote speaker and it would really help my business if you would write a testimonial, and here's a link. If you could just say how awesome of a keynote speaker I am." Who are you? Like,
right.
I don't mean to, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I don't do that. If I can't vouch for you, I'm not going to risk my reputation on someone I don't know. I just can't. Or even if I do, like, if I haven't seen you speak, I can't say you're a great speaker. If I haven't interacted with you, I can't tell you're great at social media.
Right.
It makes sense.
I mean, people that I'm actually friends with, that I actually know for a long time, I know facets or elements of what they are and what they do. And sometimes I can't speak to certain other elements, you know. Right. I have lots of friends that I've only seen in speaking and only seen like in the hallways of speaking. And so I can say they're great speakers or they're incredible collaborators and that sort of a thing. But then every now and again, the request for an endorsement will be like, well, can you talk a little bit about my strategic planning missions that I've had inside of companies? No. It's so weird that we all think that if A, I know someone, then B, they will absolutely want to support me 100%. And I want the best for someone, but I also value my reputation. And I think it would probably sully my reputation if I were just the kind of guy who said, you know, great things about people sight unseen.
Yeah, I agree. Interestingly, I've had people say that I only write 5-star reviews on Amazon, which is pretty true. I've got a couple that are 3 or 4, but most of them are not because I love everything, not because they're my friends, but because frankly, I don't have time for stuff that doesn't completely meet my needs.
Sure.
I'll just throw it away. Like I got a pen today in the mail. I really like it. It's orange. Sure. It's my favorite color.
Nice.
If by the time I get to the bottom of the ink, if I don't love it, I would just throw it away.
Right.
If I love it and I refill the pen, it's getting a 5-star review. Not because it's orange, but because it served a utility for me, right? To steal Jay Baer's word, it was useful.
Yeah.
It had utility. If it doesn't, it's no good.
You know, I was going to ask you a question about influencing because I'm so sour about that term lately because a lot of the influencers, I mean, even a lot of times I was asked to do this project for Alibaba. Now, I've never bought through or used anything at Alibaba, so they sent me a list of different products that I may or may not want to recommend to people, and I had to like scour that list and go, oh, well, I've used that one. I could say something good about that product. And so I did, and, you know, it wasn't a lot of money. It was like $500, but, you know, I felt like I'll take $500. But the whole process, I had to fill out tons of forms. There was a ton of legal stuff. I had to actually redline their legal stuff, meaning like change it and make them re-edit it. And I was like, this is for like a single tweet. And I'm not Kylie Jenner, so it's only $500. And furthermore, you know, when I looked at the engagement on that particular tweet, 342,000 followers, by the way, 342,000 followers, 18 people did something with that tweet. So I sent it to them and I said, I don't think anyone cared that I was your stupid influencer, and I think influence is stupid. Meanwhile, to your right now, you have the Dyson bladeless fan. I have that same fan 10 feet to my left right now, and I could highly recommend that fan. It is surprising how well it works for how quiet it is and how simple it is, right? So let's talk influence for a second. What's your take on all this stuff?
Well, first, influence in what is always my first question. So I think about what I'm influential in. First of all, I'm a politics-free zone on social media because nobody cares how I vote.
Right.
Let's just be honest. Nobody cares except for the people that want to disagree with whichever side I'm on. So I don't talk politics. But what am I influential in? Okay, my glasses. People ask about my glasses. I love my glasses. I have these from Zenni Optical, and I have an orange pair that I love. I got from Soho Optics in Tampa, down the street from where I live. I love them. They give me no money. Nothing. I think I am influential in glasses. I'm also influential in business books and people that come on my show because I don't take many cold pitches.
Right.
I don't care. I mean, I look behind. I mean, Chris, all of our friends have books that are somewhere in my office. I mean, seriously, man, I look at this, right? I can look through here. I see Ann Handley. I see Jay Bear. I see a couple of yearbooks. I see Jill Schiffelbein. I see some Judy Carter. I see Michael Port. If I look around more, Anthony Anareno. Anthony's one of my favorite people in the world. He's He's my second favorite bald genius after Seth, and Michael's third, by the way, Michael Port.
Sure.
Bald guys, Mitch Joel being fourth. I could go on, but I won't. Scott Stratton being the anti-bald guy.
That's right.
Man bun. I've likely given his books away to smart people, so they're not in my office right now. But even when he writes a new one, I'll have it. Mark Schaefer, Sally Hogshead. But so those books, when I bring them on my show, I have influence there. But if you ask me, like for real, you ask me, who is your favorite pin purveyor?
That's right.
I don't have a clue. I don't know. And if you tell me that you'll give me $500 to write about your pins, first of all, I don't know anything about pins, so I will say, yes, the pin stuck, and that was really good, and it seems to be round. Now, this particular pin, here's another influence, right? Otter.ai. I love these guys. Chris Penn introduced me to these. Our friend Chris Penn, and now, for real, I mention them to almost every person that I've ever met because their tool is so useful.
Well, that's there you have it.
So, but most of the time, you're totally right, man. I mean, get me to write about beach balls. No. Nobody cares about Phil's beach ball stuff. I've got one there. I've got a Matchbox car. It's orange. I can tell you that I love this car because it's orange. How does it run? Well, it's orange. So it's orange, right? I love that. So yes, I guess if you also like orange, I am influential in orange, right? That's it though. But other than that, I would say you can get more bang for your buck from finding somebody with 500 followers than 500,000. I can give them $50 because nobody's paying attention to them. The old Liz Strauss thing, baby bloggers grow up to be David Armano. David Armano closed the first HobCon. I was blessed to open the first HobCon. Armano closed, the first thing he said was, stop calling yourself a blogger. I'll never forget that as long as I live. It totally changed my life.
Yeah. Yep.
Totally changed my life. But to the influence, if you call yourself an influencer, you're not.
Right.
You're a person who perhaps has a little bit of influence over something, but it's really narrow cast, super narrow. And when you try to expand it out, you just look like a schmuck.
And you're a promotions marketer at that point, right? I mean, you're not, the term influencer doesn't even exist to the humans that often do it. I meet all these neat little people that are brand new to the world and that they're trying to influence me with their, what do you call those things you stick on the back of your phone, the little circle thing?
Pop socket.
That thing. Boy, they're so influential. I can't even remember what they're called. You know what I'm saying? Like that's pretty much that. So yeah, I'm glad we agree on that one for sure. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of brands that I love so much that if they said, I'll send you a bag of money and it's because you love our brand and we want you to say more, I will do both. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but that's the way I wish marketing worked. That's how affiliate marketing works. Affiliate marketing is I make a little money every time you are so moved to buy the thing I want you to buy because I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Didn't you buy your condo based on recommending Copyblogger stuff? Or
pretty much.
Payments, right?
I mean, I know I paid my mortgage endlessly on his first theme platform and then his second theme platform, so that the little square in the corner was paying the mortgage. So my kids wouldn't live in a dumpster. We might have to eat out of it, but the mortgage was covered every month by that. And it's gone down a little, in different times, but I always loved that. I loved the fact that, I could point to a baseline of mortgage money from just recommending stuff I knew worked really well.
And not just did you know it worked, Chris, but let's be clear, you used it.
Oh, it was my platform. It still is actually.
Yeah.
Talk about eating the dog food. I am only just now about to switch off because, they stopped selling a lot of their stuff. Studio Press is gone. So I have to go to WP Engine and all that for some of my stuff. And, I'll probably, rep that if I have a great experience there. But, it's that versus someone, I had a person come up to me and ask me, do I want to be an influencer on this like fashion brand? I said, have you seen my clothes? Like I have zero fashion influence on any human alive. Homeless people look at me and go, you should just hold on to this guy, So I don't think that's a good fit for me influential wise. So it's like me selling beard trimmers. You know, you wouldn't want that one either, but.
No. Well, you do that a couple times a month, don't you? You trim it up a little, maybe.
In fact, I'm overdue. I meant to trim it yesterday, so I got these big like squirrel cheeks going. But you know,
yeah, I saw your. Was it a video or something on Instagram? Maybe you talked about how you're going to trim your beard. I was gonna ask you if you did. So.
I didn't. I totally forgot. That was the weirdest thing. Yesterday I jumped in the shower first. Like it was a sequence problem. You know, don't jump in the shower and then try to shave because nothing good's coming of that.
You're just gonna rip your face apart.
No question.
Yeah. Well, this is a couple days growth for me, Chris. So what do you think? Is that
dear Lordy?
I need to trim it up too. Yeah.
My little brother's like that. My little brother could like a couple of years and it would look like he had that one like spaghetti piece. That's it.
Yeah, I got nothing, man. I got nothing. So it's yeah, I don't know what it is, but in some ways it's great, and in some ways it's kind of comical.
You're holding on to your energy, man. That's what I'm thinking. And
is that what it is?
They say that people don't trust people with beards. Lincoln had a beard before he ran for president, and he shaved it off.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've read that. That's
he grew it back a little later.
So what's the deal with the lumberjack guys then?
I guess don't trust lumberjacks, man. I think that's the lesson there.
You're gonna chop your house down. That's what it is, huh?
That's right.
That's funny, man. That's funny. Well, you don't talk about social media anymore, which is very interesting. I remember a couple of years ago, you kind of made that pivot into the small business space, which I really love. You know, Owner Media is fantastic. You had kitchen table companies that you did some with Joe Sorge, and that was really fun. Our friend Joe, great guy. Now they're living in Dallas, it appears.
Yeah.
Interesting. He and Angie are.
It's crazy. They're talk about a transformation, going from a guy who owned a handful of restaurants, got kind of popular in social media, partnered with a restaurant group and didn't like the deal he got when he really thought about it. Like it got him over a certain hump. And then he and his wife, Angie, said, you know, I think we could do this a different way. They bought themselves out of their deal and now they're out there just killing. Yeah. So it's, you know, once you get past, I run a restaurant to I run a restaurant group to now I run a system that helps people grow their restaurant groups. You know, it's kind of the natural progression in some ways, but it's also just a powerful way to look at all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And if we really rewind on Joe, he started out in the nightclub scene in New York.
Yeah, right.
A long time ago. Until you turned the camera around him and freaked him out at AJ Bombers. I'll never forget that. You get done with that and he calls me. He's like, dude, Chris Brogan was here. I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, like, Chris, my friend. Okay. I'm glad we ate there. He goes, no, dude, I was on camera. I'm like, good. You're good, dude. Share your stuff. Like you're real. I mean, the reason I like Joe, don't get me wrong. I love his restaurants, but I love his brain, man. He's a super duper smart marketer. Angie too, right? They're a great couple. And so it's so funny that I remember that. And then Wall Street Journal came in, Gary Vee wrote about him and Thank You Economy and
College Game Day, all those things. He was everywhere all of a sudden.
Yeah. United States of Bacon, all that good stuff. Yeah.
08, 09, basically. Next thing you know, it was like, you know, excuse me, Mr. Sorge, can we get an interview with you at some point?
Yeah. Hello, sir. Can we still be friends? Oh, that's okay. Oh, I guess not. No, I'm just kidding. Joe has never been that way. So
never.
Yeah. Really cool. But you pivoted too, which I think is fascinating. So you made that move. And first, I remember your first pivot though, Chris, the I'm sorry post where you apologized for actually wanting to make a living on the internet, Chris. I remember that. What
a jerk. You know, I had not done selling at all on my platforms for years and years and years. And then I said, you know, this is dumb. Like, you know, I have this platform. You're all here for a reason. I find things that I think are useful. Hey, I'm selling them. And around that time, Julian Smith said, you know, I've been sniffing around your stats. My co-author and friend, Julian Smith, who now runs a grown-up company. And your number one blog post by like a million miles is 100 blog topics I hope you write. And by the way, it's still my top 5 blog post every day of the week since like 2009 or whatever, when I wrote it. He said, you should make a course about blog topics. I said, that seems like a stupid course. He goes, do it. I'm like, okay. And I made like, I don't know, 60, 70 grand on the first course. Remember. And it was idiotic. It was just me writing a bunch of email that came out in a sequence. I was like, okay, this is great. You know, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to quit speaking. I'm just going to write courses. This is the best life. And then like 2 or 3 years, we had like really great stuff with courses. And then ever since then, it's been this crazy sawtooth thing where, you know, 2015 was amazing. 2016, not so bad. 17 and 18, it's like Brogan who. And 19 so far, you know, it's like, who do I got to make out around here to get a speech? But part of it was because I said, I've done all this work with big companies. I'm going to do some work with small companies. That really sent a message that I didn't realize how loud it was to big companies. Oh, forget Brogan. He only likes the little guys now. I was like, no, I just said, I'm just going to focus over here a little bit. They were like, well, he doesn't mean us anymore. So now all the stuff I'm writing is like, look at me, big company, look, because I'm still really smart about this too, it turns out. And, it's really, it feels a lot like starting over. It's like if you're a comic, it feels like going to the open mic night and working on your 5 minutes again, because that's all you get.
Yeah. That's
it's all good.
Yeah, no, totally. It's all good. I totally agree with you. I've always focused on the small company, but yeah, people still say Gerbishak who. It's okay, Chris. So one I'm just going to change my last name to Brogan, and that'll put me over the top. I think that's my next move.
You know what I love most about your last name is that once you get it, you get it.
Yep.
And so it's almost like a secret handshake all in a name, and I endlessly, because of all the interviews I get to do, I always get to watch people mispronounce all our friends' names.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because a name is something that we value. Right. And, I used to work with this guy, and it was an Indian gentleman, although he was born and raised in Ohio. So he was about as Indian as me. But his name was Shashi, and everyone called him Sashi. And I said, why don't you correct him? He goes, doesn't matter. It's close enough. And it used to drive me insane. And my Chinese friends.
Shashi Belakamanda?
Different Shashi in this case. Shashi Gowda.
There's more than one? No way.
Oh my gosh. Shashi is like the Phil of India. So, there's a bunch.
That's fantastic. That's really cool. Yeah.
Phil of India would be another good show for you to launch.
That's good. Yeah. They've got, I don't know. I don't know that I can do another show, Chris. Nobody watches this one. So why would I do another one?
Oh, so, you and me both, brother.
Right?
I go live and I get to talk to 3 people more than who are on the call.
Well, that's why I don't even pay attention to the comments most of the time anymore. So as much as I love people that comment, I use Zoom and it goes right there. And then I'll go back and comment after the show. But,
sure.
I don't know. I try to ask questions that I think other people would want to know, but mostly because they're things that I want to know.
Sure. Yeah. Interviewing is an interesting thing. I was being interviewed yesterday, and this guy just stuck to his guns, meaning his like pre-written questions. And it was clear from question 1 that he kind of had the wrong guy. Like I should not have been his guest, really, basically. And then it got really crazy near the end. He was literally asking me like, what's it like to hang out with Gary Vaynerchuk? And I was like, it's like hanging out with you, I would guess, except Gary swears more than you. It's about the same.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, but like, is it crazy to be around that much wisdom? And I go, I guess I don't really look at it that way. Like when I'm hanging out with Gary, it's not like we try to like out opine each other. Like we laugh and like ask about the kids and that sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't answer that one so well. He's like, well, you met Richard Branson. I said, yeah, over Skype. I mean,
right.
It was about as sexy as you and me talking on this podcast. And I said, except that I got to watch him a little bit, and he looks just like he looks in the TV in the pictures. So not that different. He was very nice. I said that. I said, every billionaire I've met has been nicer than most of the first-time millionaires I've ever met. That's all I could tell you. But it was really interesting. Like your premise of doing conversation is so much more fun to me because this guy, I just kind of checked out midway through. I was just like, well, I'll try to answer these questions the way I think he wants me to answer them without betraying my real feelings. And I'll just do my best to land some kind of a show for this guy because he's just going through. Like I might as well just go with him.
Yeah. I remember the first time I ever got someone to interview me that sent me the 10 questions ahead of time so I could prepare.
Sure.
I promise you, nothing personal. I'm not going to prepare.
Mm-mm.
It's not because I don't prepare. Let me be really clear. When I speak, I'm well prepared. But I know me really kind of well.
Yes.
And I don't need you to prepare me. Now, if you're trying to screw me, go ahead. Because frankly, I don't care. Like, I won't share your post then. I won't share your podcast, right? If you're a jackass, smell you later, pal. It's okay. But on the other hand, if you make me feel really wonderful, like Zvi Ban interviewed me for his Insightly show, and he made me feel awesome. And then he followed up. Get this. He sent me a custom coffee cup, Chris, that has a little caricature of Phil and of Zvi and the title of our show together.
That's big.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome. And it's orange. home run, baby. I wear that. I have that mug. It isn't right here because it's too late.
Probably watching it.
Probably am. You know, and I all the time I have it. Insightly is, you know, I think well of Zvi. He sold the company now, by the way. It's been acquired. But I still talk nice about Zvi, and if he has something else, I totally would want to be part of it.
Right.
Because he made me feel great.
Yep. Is it Maya Angelou, you know? They'll never remember exactly what you said, but how you made them feel, that kind of thing. Yeah. Somebody smart said that. I believe that with all my heart. Well, you know, I saw it in person. Do you know Cliff Ravenscraft from around?
I know who Cliff is. I don't know him, though. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I feel like you guys would get along well. So this guy came up to a bunch of us, amongst them being Cliff, and said, "Oh, hey, Cliff, we met at such and such an event." And I thought, well, that's pretty good of him because, you know, you never know. Like sometimes it's a little foggy where you met someone. And
sure.
I felt like good for you. You led with that. And then it all went off the rails. He goes, "Yeah, you told me about, I don't remember. It was like your weight loss or your like transformation, or I don't know, you got healthy or something like that." Like, think about that. Like, and that's what I'm sure Cliff talked about, because Cliff lost a ton of weight, got super healthy. I'm sure that's what he talked about. But think about it from Cliff's side. That was a monumental challenge in his life. It was something huge that he did, something he's hugely proud of. And this guy rattled it off like it was whatever it was that we talked about before we talked about the thing that I wanted to talk to you about. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much value you weighed on it. So I turned to the two other people I was standing with. I was like, you know who's a douche? That guy. I've never met him before, but I already don't like him. You know, because I was just like, you're no good. And because to me, everybody forgets stuff all the time. It's no big deal. Like if someone forgets some detail of each other's life, I hardly remember anyone else's kids' names. But if something really matters to you and you have a conversation with this person, if they matter to you, you're going to remember. You know what I mean? And it's not a quiz show, but it's nuts how, you know, we interact with people and they act in this weird way that's like, you know, I'm immediately forgetting what you're saying to me because I'm just waiting to say the thing I want to say to you.
So I've got 5 questions now, Chris. That are a quiz show. No, I'm just kidding, right? I would never do that, but I feel you, man. And
you were wearing flannel that day, and
yeah. That's the ticket.
We were hanging out with your musician friend,
right? Yeah. Well,
I don't know his name.
Yeah, Brant Manswar.
That's the man. Yes. Who every time I see his name, it sounds like an absolutely fake name.
Yeah. Well, so I think of Manswar like Guar. Right? The band. Yes. And because he's a rocker. So that's how come I can always, not to mention, he is one of the nicest people on the planet. Just got mentioned. I don't remember which Speakers Bureau, top 10 people to follow, along with like Gandhi and like Mother Teresa, and then Brant is number 7. I'm like, of course he is. And he deserves it.
And by the way, almost nobody knows who Guar is. So that already re-endears me to you even more.
Chris, you know I know lots of useless stuff, my friend.
That's a fine musical band there based out of Virginia.
Yes, sir.
Richmond.
Yeah. Yes, very nice. Very nice. So, Chris, let's talk a little bit about Dented, man, because I think that's important. I mean, you're working on a book, and it's going to be incredible, and I can't wait to read it because the articles and the videos you've been doing have made a big, big difference for me, and I know a lot of people. But that comes from a place of pain.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I try really hard all the time to talk about, when I talk about depression, what I most want people to realize is that I'm saying it the same way you have diabetes, you know. When someone says to me, you know, hey, we're going to lunch, I got to take a look at the menu first because I have diabetes. You go, oh, yeah, cool. You don't go, oh, and start, you know, envisioning them in a pine box. So when I talk about depression, what I want people to be is like, oh, yeah, that's one of those things he deals with. And I'm trying really hard to make that the way. So, you know, definitely depression is painful and not fun. And there's a lot of, you know, the operating execution of depression is super unfun because it slows everything down. It makes you question all your abilities. You lose tons of energy. You become far less social, even if you weren't very social to begin with, et cetera, et cetera. There's like so many negatives, but there's positives too. I mean, every person dealing with depression I know is also super creative. By contrast, almost all super creative people that I know are also dealing with depression, anxiety, or some other, you know, simple mental health issue. And when I say simple, I just mean not split personality or something crazy that takes a lot of extra hard work. Depression and anxiety are tricky enough. So yeah, this book, the idea of this book is it's a business book. but it's how do we use openness? How do we use empathy to build stronger businesses by improving creativity and collaboration? I only wanted to tackle just a little bit of this. Now, that feels so far afield from things I've written. But when we wrote Trust Agents together, Julian Smith and I said, look at things differently. Treat everybody like they're unique. Try to build a small group of people together. It's all the same language. It's the same stuff I've said for all of my career. I don't actually have any particularly new message. I have new ways to look at something to kind of go after a different problem. So the whole premise of the book, the way it's shaping up right now, one of my chapters is called Uniformity is for Products, Not People. One of my chapters is called Perfection Sucks. One chapter is called Can We Laugh About This? And so my plan is I want to show leadership inside organizations. How do you work with people in such a way that you treat them like individuals? We've built our companies to be sort of factory setting sized. And I think that we need to remember that, button chair management doesn't work. Everyone working at the same hours doesn't work, all that sort of thing. So I'm going after that. And again, everything is going to have, you sort of tuck the broccoli into the cake. It's a delicious cake. There's nice frosting, but I stuck a whole bunch of broccoli and you'll never notice, but it's there and it'll be better for you. So I'm going to talk about, how to do improved corporate workplace wellness, that sort of a thing, by talking about really tangible stuff businesses need. One of the things the chapter I have is something about, we need reset buttons everywhere. And that whole idea of salespeople, for instance, you get a bunch of no's in a row, you get in your own head, you're suddenly a crappy salesperson the rest of the day. What if I gave you a reset button? What if I gave you actual mechanical tools that let you start again and keep going? And I think we all need that, not sales, but everybody. You start working on something vaguely creative. Someone comes in and says, Phil, I looked at your last 3 posts. They felt like the same old stuff you were talking about 10 years ago. That's it. I've just ripped your sale right off the mast. So I don't know. That's what I'm looking at. And the feedback I'm getting every time I write about something like depression, or I wrote about Instagram being this window that you look into other people's lives and go, oh man, I suck. I'm the worst person. And you compare yourself. It's all from like, this is stuff I've dealt with. And now I want to show companies that their employees are all dealing with this and they're not privy to that. There's people in companies that have all various mental challenges. So I'm just trying to figure out how do I make companies realize that there's a lot of untapped value there, and there's numerics to it. Improved sales, better attendance, faster creativity and collaboration to help companies not get so locked in. And I think that the minute we help with paralysis, a lot of companies are going to feel like a better place to be, right?
Yeah, well, and they will be, because if your boss cares about you, because they understand you, it's automatically a better place. I mean, really, anybody that cares about you, you feel more like you belong to something. And that's the important thing. I mean, I think all in all, Chris, that's all any of us want, is we just want to be part of something.
Right.
Because the world is big and lonely, and often, I'm sitting here in my office and I get to talk to you, but a lot of the day I'm heads down. It's just me.
Sure.
I'm creating, but often creating from air, from vapor. And it's hard. It's hard work. And yeah, it is depressing. And inside a corporation, we have developers with their earbuds on that aren't talking to anybody. We have, open concept spaces, but that means we have to be even more focused and intentional about what we do, which makes it even harder because it's productivity. People don't smoke anymore, so they don't go outside for smoke breaks, so they don't talk. And if you take 12 minutes to go get a cup of coffee because you're the nice guy that filled the coffee maker, well, now suddenly you're looked at like, where you been? It's been 12 minutes. What's going on? So we're getting more and more spread apart. Nobody cares, or so we believe. And so I really think this is important stuff, man. The whole empathy thing, understanding where people come from, really, really important, right? No one size fits all. I think that's beautiful, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like for as much as we're working on digital transformation, we're not really working on digital culture transformation. And I think that's, there were those studies that just came out a couple of weeks ago saying that, with the advent of social, the rise in anxiety, depression, and suicide are up massively in teens and very noticeably in every other age group. And so it's definitely one of those things where Again, I don't want to walk around like the wet shirt and be like, whoa, depression's real. But I definitely want to say there's so many people that are just on that razor's edge struggling. I'll tell you a story without revealing the person, but Jack and I don't remember when this was. It was when I spoke at World Domination Summit. It could have been in 2012 or 2013. I was walking down a hallway with Jack. I made eye contact with this woman that I know, and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And she burst into tears, and she said, "I don't belong here. None of this is for me. I shouldn't be part of this. I don't know what's happening. I feel terrible." And I just hugged her for a while, and she let a lot of energy out. Oh my gosh, she had so much energy. And then she was fine again. But, she was just overwhelmed, like, by all the purple, pink-haired people at Chris Killabo type events. And I feel like I'm seeing more and more of that. And I'm seeing, for everyone who thinks they need to hide every little bump in their road, I'm just going out there saying, what you can do is you can say, man, I just had a really bad couple of months, but I'm back on my feet and I feel like I'm doing well. Or I had a bad couple of months and I feel like if I just got X, I would get over that hump and I'd be okay. I think we could call it out a little bit more. And I think that everyone's going to work a little bit better if we do that.
I agree. I think asking for what we need is perfectly normal, regardless of what that is. And the more we talk about that, the more opportunity we have to really connect and to make a difference in each other's lives. But that requires a level of trust that often isn't there. I mean, Chris, seriously, man, circling back to your first book about trust agents, that's the whole reason. That's why influence works, is because we trust the person. That's how it passes through. It's not because number of followers. It's because I have a shared experience with them. And I say, okay, well, that person and I have something in common. Therefore, when they recommend something, it makes a difference. Therefore, when they share something, I believe them. I don't blame them. If they tell me something, I believe it. And I think that's the thing that scares me, man, is we have a lot of people that don't believe anything people different than them say.
Right.
They just automatically knee-jerk reaction. No, they're wrong. And I'm not saying that they're right. I am saying, you don't know. I'm saying pause for a minute and think about, perhaps they could be. Give it some consideration, because they might just be dented. They don't have to be broken.
Absolutely. And that's, the reason I picked that word is because I think that about zero people really want to talk about, their mental illness. And it dented fits a lot of other things, people going through sobriety, that are really excited about their 2-year coin, but they're not going to show anybody because, that would be crazy. People dealing with, I just talked to a marketing friend of ours, a mutual friend, who just went to pack up her dad's house, and he's going to have to go live with them for, until he goes into a home or not. And so, that's a big change, and it really is going to change her business around a little bit, because, you're taking on another life in your house. And so you're not as footloose and fancy free as you used to be. Every one of those people, including ourselves and everybody else we know that goes through rough times, and every human on the earth, they're still functional. They just sometimes are operating at a lower percentage during a time. And I think that with bosses, I don't even especially need them to care. I need them to accommodate. I need them, if I'm going to need to come in later and leave later for a while, that shouldn't be such an amazing, tricky thing. And, button chair kind of stuff. I mean, there's differences, right? If we're Cirque du Soleil and it's a 7:00 show, it's a 7:00 show. If you and I are waiters, we got to be there at a certain time. And some people don't have this luxury, but a lot of our jobs are not time bound. They're just that way because that's how bosses set them up. And I think we're done with that. I don't know.
I hope so. I mean, it is individualized, and I would say it is also results focused.
Yeah.
It's one thing, and not to belittle anyone who sucks that is suffering from depression. I'm not
sure
to make that light of that, but I mean, if you do a good job, regardless of when you do it, you should, that's a reward. That's rewardable stuff, right? So I think that, I hope that what people hear is that, you have a choice, you can open up, share a little bit. And the accommodation, I think that's a really important word, Chris, and a really important reminder for us, is that the goal is to accommodate, even if we don't understand, even if we don't care. But we can say, for instance, if someone needs more seat space because they got a bigger butt than me, which, is unlikely but possible, right? So then I just need to accommodate that. I need to move a little bit off so that they can get their space in. And instead of saying, no, this is mine. I mean, really, this is our world. It's not just my world. It's not just your world, bro. It's all of our worlds, right? And that's the thing. I think we need to share more.
I agree. And I just think that for the most part, there's a lot of systems in place that exist either for fear, lack of trust, those kinds of things. But a lot of them exist because that's just how they've always been done. So why do we need an 8 to 4:30 kind of a life if that's not what we're going to go for here? So I don't know. I think you're in that same boat. I think you're a flexible kind of gentleman. So why not help other people get that too?
Absolutely. Totally agree, man. Totally agree. So Chris, anything else you want to share, man, before we wrap up? Because I know you got a lot of messages and a lot of things you could share.
I love chatting with you, and I think that it's exciting, this format, because we could just chat. And it's just interesting. I mean, I want more people to turn on their cameras and do this kind of a thing. I want, man, we don't need any more gurus. I think we're okay with gurus. But, the way I started and when I started, and you were there too, look what we were doing. We're just like, man, I just figured this thing out. Look at this. Oh, I figured this other thing out. Look at this. And that's how any of us got known, was just by we were first in a lot of categories, good and bad. Man, I just fell off this cliff. Everybody, let's not go to that cliff. And I think I want to get back to that. I want to get back to, a lot more experimentation and people just trying to do what's going to serve people best and not trying to see what's the best practice.
Ooh, there you go. Serve the best. Don't worry about the best practice. Good stuff, Chris. So folks, if you want to catch more of Chris Brogan, go to chrisbrogan.com. Everything links off of there. Chris is CHRIS. Brogan is BROGAN. chrisbrogan.com. He's a great man, great friend, and I'm fortunate that he spent time with us today. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you, man.
My pleasure, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Anytime.
Woo!
So that's our show, Chris.